Tonight, this is important. This is like past 1 a.m. on Saturday morning, and I should be sleeping, but I've been doing a lot of research and I just realized that I need to let this out. A lot of things are happening, and we don't know, we don't even have control over these things. Anyway, we don't know, so we can't have control over what we don't know. There are a lot of lies, especially in this Africa that we live in. There are a lot of lies flying around. There are a lot of things we don't know. And one of those things we don't know is famine is coming. Why am I saying this? We've been seeing trends and we don't understand these trends. Some years ago, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I watched this video on TED Talk. A woman who worked I think in the World Bank, I can't remember. I was talking about the loss of yield in Sudan, how this irrigation system came and they adopted it and their yield started going down. Then she had to go back to re-educate the farmers to go back to their traditional way of planting. She talked about digging holes on the ground to retain water, so that it boosted the yield. And recently, you also know about the food crisis in Zimbabwe. When the white farmers were there, the farms were working. Now that the lands are taken away from them and they have given those lands to the Zimbabwe farmers, yields are going down. Is it that the white farmers who came to Africa to hustle are better farmers than Zimbabweans? Of course, no. I just realized that some things happened. The crops they plant, there's this thing about, I don't want to mention names of companies. There are some companies who supply them seed, and those seeds will keep reducing in yield until they die out. Now think about those oranges you buy in popular malls in Nigeria, those oranges that are orange in color, that are very sweet. I've not really tasted one of them. I know those oranges are genetically modified, so I've not really had any of them. But I've heard from friends that those oranges are not, you cannot plant the seeds. They won't grow because they are sterile. They are just planted to be consumed and then you move on. So these are some of the things that are happening in Africa, and we don't understand world politics and all that. We are just sitting down, allowing these people to overrun our way of life. In Zimbabwe, for instance, you plant those seeds, you have to fertilize them, you have to take special care, and the yield declines year after year until those seeds are unusable and you need to buy. What do the farmers gain from spending their money to plant crops that keep reducing yields? Okay, let's talk about Ghana and the cocoa crisis. In 2022-2023, Cocoa Board of Ghana said about 150,000 tons of cocoa was lost. That is massive, 150,000 tons. The reason they say smuggling, but the important reason I think this thing happened is because of the swollen shoot disease that reduced the yield. And Ghana have never been through this kind of crisis until they started wanting to take control of their cocoa, maybe value added or determine the prices they pay for it. But now they lost about 500,000 hectares of land of cocoa trees, and that reduced their yield by 40%. Okay, in 2023-2024, output is reduced by 40%. And in 2025, they're actually trying to boycott the people who used to loan them money to plant cocoa and try to source this cocoa internally. And from the video I watched online, it's like, it's not possible because the money is not in Ghana. This beats me. How do you plant crops year after year for decades and you still have to borrow to plant every year? It doesn't add up. So what is happening? Which means there are actually people who are in control of this industry who have boxed people into a pattern. Like you sell, it's not like you're making too much. It's just for sustenance. Then you have to go back to borrow again. So that brings us to Nigeria. As a Nigerian, I've been studying, making researches, and I got to a point and I decided that no, I needed to do something, to try and talk about it. If you are a Christian and you know that, in Revelations, you know the story of the four horsemen. I've been doing researches and I've discovered that I'm not deaf in it. Do your own research. But from sources I've been listening to, I've realized that the first horseman, colonization, the second was, that we are in a war now, and everybody was thinking that this was going to be like a third world war. And you know the effect. A loaf of bread now, you know how much, because somebody cannot export wheat. And we've been sold this dummy that wheat cannot grow in Africa, or you have special regions where wheat grow, which is a lie. From what I heard, they started planting wheat in Burkina Faso. These people they don't want Africa to be able to feed themselves. Why do we need fertilizers to plant crops in Nigeria, for instance? You are traveling from Lagos to Benin. In the rainy season, the road is almost overrun by weeds. You leave your house for a while, you see plants growing on the decking, the roofs. So why do we need fertilizers? I don't understand. Why do we need GMO crops in Nigeria? Because on the long run, these things affect our biodiversity, and it's not even our culture to start planting some kind of seeds. We've been planting for years. We have a system of storage, and we put aside what we want to plant in the next year, and we go on from there. We didn't need GMOs to build the pyramid, the rubber trees, the oil palm, the cocoa, and the rest of the things we have, the cotton. But today, they have sneaked into our way of life unnoticed, because we don't really care about how this nation is moving. Everything is just about jackpot. Yes, I wanted it at the time, but I just had to start thinking where you start thinking about what's happening and why are things happening like this. Let me reel out a list of plants we already have as GMOs. I don't want to go into this conspiracy theory of men trying to destabilize our farms, and then we have to rely on GMO, or we have to succumb to some people to help us to gain food security. But what I'm trying to say is, how did we allow these people to sneak in unnoticed? Because we don't care about governance. We just don't care. For God's sake, why would government allow GMO without consulting the citizens? Is it that they can just impose things on us? Let's look at the list of GMOs we already have in Nigeria. We have BT cotton that came 2018. 2018 is like 7 years ago. I just got to know today, because when I read the story about the third horseman, I realized that it was famine. It's not what our preachers who are trained in European seminaries or school of theology are preaching, because they preach what they've been taught to further enslave us. If you take time to read these things, you realize that they are symbolic. Even in the passage, it is said that price of food, which means food are going to be very expensive. So what does that mean? Why would food be expensive if not for farming? And now they are even engineering a method that will make the food not accessible to. See, I feel sorry for Africans. On top of all what we suffer in Africa, if you add famine to that, it's going to be, I just don't want to go there. In 2019, of course, I talked about 2018, BT cotton. Yeah, cotton, you might say, okay, fabrics may not affect you. 2019, BT cowpea. You know, that's granite. When you are drinking beer in those joints, then you call for granite. You don't really know where the granite came from. In 2024, maize variety approved that is resistant to insect and drought. When have we ever had insects attack our maize so bad that we're crying that we had a bad harvest? These are things we plant in our backyard. When I was in primary school, I planted yam in the compound. I didn't go, not in a farm. And I know how big that harvest was. Put it in the ground, and that was all. I didn't have to fight weeds because it was in a compound that we live. Others in development: herbicide-tolerant soybeans, mosaic virus-resistant cassava, brown streak-resistant cassava, nutritionally enhanced cassava, sorghum and rice. And nobody knows in this country, or some people know and they don't care about it, just trying to enjoy themselves. They want to eat rice. Right now, we don't even know the kind of rice we eat in Nigeria. What about the prevalence of cancer and all those diseases that we didn't witness in the 80s and even 90s until the early 2000s? I knew about the first kidney issues around 2000. Then look at 10-20 years after, just count the number of people who have died from these terminal illnesses. And we don't have a solution. We don't think about it. We are talking about Trump withdrawing aid for HIV. And we have tradomedical doctors in Nigeria. We rely on ginseng from China. We go to India to import these things, and we are just messing around. We're unlucky to attend churches that told us that herbalists are witch doctors who will go to hell. So we have not harnessed, we have not documented anything about our culture and tradition. We threw ourselves open to the West to manipulate and deal with us. It's appalling. Anyway, I'm talking about solutions. What do we do? If you are from a village where you still have farmers, please tell them to preserve their natural grains, whatever they've been planting, because in a few years, these GMO will overtake everything and destroy what we already have, and we won't have these things even if we want to retrace our steps. So we need to find a way to preserve these things. If we have to plant some certain hectares every year to just for storage, I think we should do that. And let's spread this message. Please, let's share. Let's talk to people in the villages, in the rural areas. Let's try and educate them, not to jump at every new thing that is coming, especially when they have not proven these things to be true. We have not had problems with our crops. I don't see why we need to change anything. If it's not broken, why fix it? Anyway, I'll stop here. Just have it in mind that we're already in a crisis that needs to be fixed. Forget about the politicians for now. Let's make this a self-help thing. I believe you will understand what I'm talking about, and please, God will bless you if you can put an effort on these things to preserve our cultural identity, to also preserve our biodiversity before they bring these crops to overrun everything we have, and we now have to keep depending on them for our sustenance. Thank you, and God bless.